we were so scared that Netflix is going to launch in this region and they will destroy us and we will not survive.
So from moving and starting STARZPLAY, you've went through a journey of challenges. How did the field shifted, or the startup scene in general shifted in the region?
So when we first started, Netflix was not here. Amazon Prime was not here. And then 2 or 3 years later, Netflix made plans to go global and they decided to launch in MENA. The day Netflix launched, our app downloads increased 2 or 3 times. And then that growth and awareness for our brand continued as Netflix continued to grow. We grew with Netflix. What a global platform does is they bring awareness. Once Netflix is here, you compare side by side. And people were deciding, okay, compared to Netflix, these guys have good content. Our business did really well the year Netflix launched. So one lesson learned for us was global competition is not always a bad thing.
Maaz, you left the Silicon Valley and ended up in Abu Dhabi, building one of the region's largest streaming platforms, getting the exclusive rights of T20, Serie A, as well as the UFC, beating giants in the fields that wanted to compete for these. And also you got major investments from E&A and ADQ. I'm super excited to hear more about your journey and how you reached here today.
Assalamu alaikum, Abdullah, and thank you for having me.
Salam.
Thank you for capturing my entire life in just one sentence. It's a pleasure to be here and look forward to unpacking this with you. What I will say is that, like all journeys, my journey and our journey also started with 1 or 2 steps, and it's been 12 years now. But alhamdulillah, things went in our direction, and it's been a dream come true for me personally, along with the other management team members and founders, to have built this business over the last 12 years.
It's an exciting journey, to be honest. Reading about it is something, but also at the same time, I'm quite interested in the angles, or diving deeper into the personal angles of it. Sure. So to go back to your initial journey, you've went and you started from the Silicon Valley, your startup journey. How did you have this shift from the Silicon Valley to Abu Dhabi? A lot of people see the Silicon Valley now, and it has been over the past few years, as the leading place for startups. But now, personally, I see Abu Dhabi growing a lot in the startup scene, but I'd love to hear from you.
Sure. So one of the things that was different for me, perhaps compared to other people who were in Silicon Valley, I lived in the UAE, grew up here in the 70s. My father used to work here. My school was in Sharjah. And so I spent 8 or 9 years of my childhood here. So UAE was always home, or part of my home growing up. So, but in Silicon Valley, I had the opportunity to work with, I would say, 2 or 3 leading startups. The startups were mostly in the networking telecom space, but the mindset and the culture, the lessons learned were very useful in when I came back to the UAE to come back to the region. But the lesson you learn in Silicon Valley, perhaps the most important thing you see in Silicon Valley, is the risk appetite. Is people will leave their jobs at Oracle and start a new company. They would leave their jobs at Cisco and start a new networking company. And not all of them become successful. As you know, 97% fail. But that appetite to take risk is in the system. And similarly, the investors there have an appetite to invest in 10 companies and lose money on 9 of them, right? So it's that risk tolerance and risk appetite was one thing that I appreciated and learned in Silicon Valley. The other thing, perhaps the lesson learned for me, was I had the pleasure of working with CEOs and chairmen who would get involved with me as a salesperson to help me sell to our first and second, third customers, because when you, as a startup, when you first start selling, it's a visionary sell. The product is still in early stages, so you almost need the CEOs and the founders' vision in front of the customer to be communicated and positioned properly. So I think that idea of not leaving the sales to a salesperson and the management and the CEO themselves getting involved in the early sales was a very important lesson. So those two things to me were very powerful lessons that I learned there. I would say, sometimes knowledge is more important than being intelligent. So it's that knowledge that I gained there that helped me build this company 10 years later.
That's very nice. And tapping on the aspect of your first few jobs in the telecom industry, your background is in electrical and computer engineering. How did this help you shape your career?
I started my first job out of university was with Sprint, which is a telecom company. And of course, in 1993, I could not have seen that one day telecom and media are going to become one, right? Those things became reality 20, 30 years later. But I think having a foundation in technology gave me perhaps the confidence to be able to move from one job to another and one field to another, because I started as an engineer and then I was able to move into marketing and product management. And then from marketing, product management, I was able to move into sales. And the sales jobs is where I really found my passion. Even though I was educated as an engineer, I felt I didn't excel as an engineer. But I found myself enjoying and found myself a lot more passionate about technical sales and technology sales. And I felt in the field of sales, especially when you're selling technology products, having that technical background gave me an edge compared to other salespeople. Even if there was no edge, it was there in my mind. Yes. And I felt that the customers recognized that as well, even though our sales pitch might have not been any different. But I think having that technical background really helped me change my focus from engineering to sales. And even to this day, that is still that's the part of the business that I enjoy the most is being out there doing business development and doing more sales.
Emphasizing on this point, I truly believe that people, when they see as a person doing sales, so they will assume that this salesperson most probably comes from a business background or something. But when they challenge you technically and you respond technically, then they will assume that basically how good the technical team would be.
Correct.
I would see that as an advantage, as you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Now, your son has graduated a few days ago. He graduated from electrical engineering.
Correct.
And your other son from computer science. Did you influence their decisions? Because a lot of us, get influenced by their parents. But
correct. Yes, alhamdulillah, my older one graduated in electrical engineering, and I think there's definitely an influence at home. My wife is also an electrical engineer, so I think both their parents being engineers certainly had an influence, and it also became very obvious when they were applying to colleges. They needed to write essays. And, sometimes those essays are very long, and they were not very good at it, and their parents weren't very good at it. So it made sense to focus on math and physics. So I think the influence at home makes a big difference. I have friends, who were arts graduates and business graduates, and they read more books at home, and they were more focused on literature. So sometimes the environment makes a big difference, and I think it certainly impacted in my son's case as well. But one of the questions my son asked me was very similar to yours, is that he asked me, Baba, you changed a lot of careers in your life, from engineering to marketing to sales. How did you do that? And I told him the same thing, that when you study engineering, it's a way of thinking. It's a way of analyzing a problem. It's a way of breaking a problem down and solving it. And it's a good foundation, good, skill to have. And then you can move from one profession to another.
So as you mentioned, I do actually directly relate to that since graduating from electrical engineering myself, right, and seeing how I diverted also through my career. I've seen that basically we have electrical engineers and basically engineers in general playing each and every role. So they're not quite limited with their engineering degree or the engineering field in general. And this takes them to other fields. Now, tapping more into the transition, you were in a really stable job at OSN, and everyone dreams to be there. When did you feel that I should change my, let's say, my perspective around being an employee in a big company and move and open my own startup?
That's a very difficult one. So I think, Abdullah, everyone is different, right? And you need a balance in life, right? Sometimes it's important to say Alhamdulillah and be happy with what you have and be thankful for what you have. And sometimes in life, your heart and your mind want something more. And when that time comes, you feel this uneasiness, and you feel, on one hand, you feel this uneasiness, but you also feel some energy inside you that's telling you that I want more. And I think a lot of us, and I'm sure you felt the same, yes, same energy and same hunger. And if you are really lucky, if you're really blessed, then along with this energy, you're also blessed with co-founders and friends that give you the courage to take that step. Because taking that, as much as you might feel, the hunger and you feel the energy, but still taking that step is a big step, is a big leap of faith, right? And I think if you have friends or co-founders that you do it with, then that gives you confidence to do it. And that was the case in my case. I was fortunate to have a few co-founders come with me, give me the courage, because as a founder, and especially as a CEO, it's very important to believe in yourself and have the confidence. But at the same time, you have to be honest with your own capabilities, right? And I might have certain strengths, but I know I had areas of weakness as well. And this is where your co-founders and people you're going to build the company with come in and complement that. So that gives you the strength to take that step. And so for me, that was perhaps, I was about 43 years old, and like you said, it reached that stage where, alhamdulillah, I was very blessed with a very successful job, and kids were happy at home, and kids were healthy, and there was nothing to complain with life. Alhamdulillah. But at the same time, you felt that this was the time. And it's a very difficult balance of these two things. And I don't think there is a right answer one way or another, right? I don't think there is. It's not black and white. But I look back and I think we had a very successful journey, and timing was right. The environment was right. We started building the business, and then the UAE ecosystem was changing at the same time. So we grew with the system, right? We were earlier, we were talking about how our office was in the old 2454 building, right? So, and then look at this 2454 campus now,
Exactly.
right? So we grew with the environment, we grew with the system. So I think we were very fortunate in the timing as well.
Yeah, it's quite a blessing to see how the UAE's startup scene and general industry has moved and grew a lot in the past few years. And as you mentioned, from a personal perspective also, I was always asking when is the right time to shift and leave the full-time job and start a startup, or basically go full-time on the startup. And everyone was telling me you'd never know until you jump and try it out. But during the journey of transitioning, usually as a founder, there is the co-founding team, but also at the same time, from a personal level, most probably there are mentors who came in your journey or people who supported you. If you'd like to share any of these experiences with mentors, but also maybe a key learning that you gained during that.
Sure. So on the key learning, I think, Abdullah, the one factor that has been very important in my entire journey is the art of building and maintaining meaningful relationships, and not burning bridges, right? So today I'm still in touch with the hiring manager who hired me from university. So it's 35 years, but we still stay in touch. And I'm still in touch with the first customer I made a major sale to, again, 25 years old. So and this, I think, is really important in the younger generation, where we spend so much time on social media and we spend so much time on our mobile phones. We have to bring back this art of relationship building, face to face, and going out, networking, meeting people, and not just superficial networking, building deep, meaningful relationships where you get to know their families, they get to know you, and you can rely on them. And so there, in my case, there were several mentors that helped me. One did introductions to the investors that became our Series A and Series B investors. Two of my mentors became references and in background checks when I was raising money. And these were mentors that I had worked maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But sometimes it's as simple as, sending a message, Eid, Ramadan, Happy New Year, right? And just checking in every now and then. But you have to maintain these relationships. So I think it wasn't one mentor, but there were at least 3 or 4 that were very meaningful in providing the references, doing introductions, and giving reference and background checks when I was raising money.
Subhanallah, it's a small thing of checking in every now and then, but it's really so impactful to ensure basically that when you check in on someone, they would actually check in back on you, and they can help out. You might pop up in their head at certain times. And so from moving and starting STARZPLAY, you've went through a journey of challenges. And since the time STARZPLAY, Kareem, as well as Talabat started, how did the field shifted, or the startup scene in general shifted in the region?
So, there were a few things that surprised us. So when we first started, Netflix was not here, Amazon Prime was not here, none of the global platforms were here. Shahid was here. It was called NBC.net at that time. Shahid brand wasn't quite launched, but they had an online service, and we launched an online service. So in some ways, competition was limited. And then 2 or 3 years later, Netflix made plans to go global, and they decided to launch in MENA. And I remember that 2 or 3 weeks, we were so scared that Netflix is going to launch in this region and they will destroy us and we will not survive. But subhanAllah, sometimes, there's a blessing in these things. And the day Netflix launched, our app downloads increased 2 or 3 times. And then that growth and awareness for our brand continued as Netflix continued to grow. We grew with Netflix, because what a global platform does is they bring awareness. Yeah. And now, if you were in the market trying to decide whether you subscribe to STARZPLAY or not, you were always thinking, well, this is maybe a local company, I'm going to wait for Netflix. But once Netflix is here, you compare side by side. And people were deciding, okay, compared to Netflix, these guys have good content. So our business did really well the year Netflix launched. So one lesson learned for us was global competition is not always a bad thing. It's good for the consumer, it's good for the industry, but it's also good for the category because it brings awareness to the category. And that really helped us.
Makes total sense. We've seen similar examples, such as, for example, Alibaba and eBay, and how basically they got to win the local market, right. Especially that you've understood the market just much more before Netflix Correct. Came in. And from that angle, was ADQ an investor back then, or Etisalat, or just after it?
So Etisalat came in as an investor in 2018. So okay. after 2 years after Netflix launched, Etisalat was very measured and very careful in their investments. So we worked with Etisalat for 4 years, purely commercial. So they measured how we were doing, how our app was doing on their platform, how the consumption was. And then they decided to come in as a minority shareholder in 2018. And then they measured us for the next 4 years as a minority shareholder. They sat on our board, observed us, saw our performance, saw our numbers. And then they decided to come in as a majority shareholder 4 years later in 2022. And that's when ADQ and Etisalat together came in and became majority shareholders.
So in 2022, Etisalat came and ADQ.
Correct.
At the Series D, if I'm not mistaken, which is a stage that usually the founder's equity is very low at a certain time. Right. How did this feel?
I think, over the last 12 years, we, all along in every round, I knew and we knew as management that this is a capital intensive business. So as much as founders get attached to that percentage of equity in their mind, right, we also keep in mind that yes, we are getting diluted, but at the same time, the value of equity is going up, right? Yes. So you might be getting diluted by 20, 30%, but then your equity value is increasing 50% or 40%. So it's still a good trade-off to make. And sometimes, founders are scared to let go of control because you're not controlling majority anymore. And again, it's a delicate balance. As much as you might want to control the business, you also need to prepare it both from capital and strategy, distribution point of view to be able to scale it. So I think as founders and management, we have to be flexible with that, both the dilution part and accepting some of the control that you're going to lose. When you deal with a sovereign fund like ADQ and you deal with a global, one of the biggest telecoms in the world, like EN Group, it comes with a certain governance. It comes with a certain expectation. And so one has to be prepared for that governance structure. One has to be prepared that, it's not like I'm owning the business anymore, right? So yes, there are some adjustments we had to make, and some that we were prepared for mentally, and some that we had to adjust during the year, right? I will give you a very classic example. Startups are used to aggressive budgets, and sometimes hitting them, sometimes missing them, but it's part of growing up. When you're part of a bigger group and under their governance structure, you have to be more responsible. You have to be more measured. And so yes, we had to make those adjustments. But that's all part of the change that the company has to do to get to the next level.
So other than these adjustments, what challenges you had? Maybe major challenges in that 12 years journey?
I think the good thing is, from the very beginning, we had institutional investors like GE and Lionsgate. So in some ways, we were prepared for the governance and sometimes compliance matters. I think the biggest challenge we had was culturally and as a mindset. We had to adjust for when we're putting out a budget, making sure the budget is balanced with enough ambition and enough realism so that we're not missing our numbers. I think that was the most important change that we had to adjust to.
Etisalat came in.
Correct.
How did this growth take you to the next level? I believe usually they came in Series B, or is it?
So as 2018, it was Series C.
Series C. Okay.
And 2022, they took majority. So the business was 9 years old by then when they came in 2022 as majority. I think EN and ADQ both were significant players in helping us take the company to the next level as we transitioned from being a startup to being a scale-up. And that's a very difficult transition in any region in the world, but especially in MENA, where you, as a scale-up, you have to operate in 20 countries. And in order to reach that scale, you are operating from Oman to Morocco. And you're dealing with GCC, you're dealing with Levant, Egypt, Maghreb. Each audience is slightly different. Preferences are different. Methods of payments are different. So this requires more capital, obviously, but it also, where Etisalat was the right strategic partner for us, they have a strong footprint in these markets. So they have Mobily in Saudi, Morocco Telecom in Morocco, Etisalat Misr in Egypt, PTCL in Pakistan. So they were not only able to help us on the capital side, but also bring that distribution and that subscriber reach. So if there's any suggestion or a lesson learned for entrepreneurs like yourself and your audience, it's the idea that if you can find a strategic investor who brings both capital as well as ability and help scale your business, that's very, very valuable, because the money invested in you cannot buy revenue, cannot buy subscribers and scale. It can, but it will not be sustainable. If you have a strategic partner that can help in distribution, that's a win-win in terms of an investor.
I guess these are the investments that actually take a startup or a scale up from a level to another.
Correct.
From raising around to another.
And this is where I think, Abdullah, the ecosystem in the UAE has evolved, right? Because 10, 12 years ago, you didn't have ADQ taking such positions in relatively early stage companies. Also, Audio, we worked with Audio, who are also in not in this building, but we work closely with Audio. And they gave us incentives and subsidies to establish and scale our business in Abu Dhabi. And so I think this is how the whole ecosystem in the UAE and Abu Dhabi evolved, and we evolved with them. And without that ecosystem, we wouldn't have survived. And now newer startups like yourself, you have options, you have scale-up options, you have exit options, sometimes government, sometimes semi-government, sometimes private. So those exit options are becoming more and more realistic in the ecosystem, which is what the early stage investors need to see to take that risk, because they can see companies like EAN and ADQ doing these exits, successful exits with the future scale-ups and future successful companies.
I see the ecosystem maturizing a lot. Even taking into consideration, I started a few years back, not a lot ago, but maybe in 2019, back then, within the youth community, startups were not a thing back then. But then maybe at 2021, it started booming more, and we started seeing more success stories in the region, such as STARZPLAY and others raising a large round. Now let's move maybe to your day-to-day operations. As a CEO of a large company, how is your day distributed? How do you manage your teams? And maybe diving, how many employees do you have?
Abdullah, now, alhamdulillah, we have about 400 employees.
MashaAllah.
So we have an office, obviously we're headquartered in Abu Dhabi. We have an office in Dubai. We have an office in Lahore, Pakistan. So we have about 400 employees. Day to day, honestly, I'm not the most organized, typical CEO, if you will. My day starts early, and usually with a few WhatsApps to team members, checking on a few things. Sometimes those WhatsApps, can be very random, but I usually start with getting in touch with the team members early in the morning. I usually wake up at like 4:30, and then like to do my routine, gym, whatnot, and then I work by like 9 o'clock.
So you do believe in the 5 a.m. club?
I think everyone is different. Everyone is different. I've been in the 5 a.m. club all my life, just because I wake up early, and but I think everyone has a different energy level at different times of the day. For me, morning is when my energy levels are the highest. It's always been like that. But 9 p.m., 10 p.m., I cannot keep my eyes open. So it also works the other way. I sleep early. So, but usually I start my day early, and I like to do a lot of face-to-face meetings. But I try to keep focus on mostly revenue-facing activities. I would say maybe 20% of my day, 20 to 30% of my day goes into strategy, shareholder, board level things. 50% I would say I'm focused on sales, business development, growth, and then the rest of the time, maybe 20, 30% on product. The engineering side of our business is quite, not that it's mature, but it's very stable. It's very predictable. We have a very strong team, and I have less to add there, you know. So technology has evolved a lot and changed a lot, and I have very little to add there. So I'm mostly relying on our CTO, who's been there with us since day one for 12 years. So that's one area that I perhaps get involved the least now. Sales, business development is the exciting part. That's where the growth is. So that's what I focus the most on. Sometimes it's as boring things as collections, you know, who didn't make the payment. You know?
I guess that's the biggest challenge. When I saw startups evolving around that aspect, so I know startups that are dedicated to the aspect that they work with you to do the collections instead of you. I didn't understand the importance of it until I faced it myself.
Correct.
Started chasing clients, please pay us, please. We do need it.
And you know, I think if you do B2B sales anywhere in the world, you have selling is 80% and the other 20% is collections, right? So and so getting involved in that, and similarly on the flip side, you know, people are trying to collect from us as well. You know, it's a cycle. So managing those two things is always a big part of what I do.
And also maybe tapping into the 5 a.m. aspect. I recently tried it out, to be honest.
Right.
And I was thinking of it while thinking about the episode. I was searching on the internet. And so, of course, back in the days, I've seen a lot of CEOs do it. But I've tried it myself, and to a certain extent, I still wake up for Fajr, sleep at 12 nowadays. My team is getting surprised. And after Fajr, I try to work and then sleep for a quick nap. And actually, I've seen its benefits, and now hearing from you how it influenced your day in a positive way, I guess I'll be implementing it more and more. Maybe tapping into numbers. So we spoke about your stages. I don't know if you'd like to share with us some numbers at certain stages in terms of revenue and aspects that you'd like to share.
Sure. So we are in terms of growth rate, Abdullah, we've been past, I would say 3 years, we've been growing at about 20% year on year. And it's the market going forward, different research companies are predicting a growth rate of anywhere from 10 to 12% in the MENA region, which is a very healthy and strong growth rate compared to Europe and North America, where the market is becoming a little more mature. Here, we're still growing very, very nicely. It's and in terms of market share, most analysts have us as one of the top 3 services. So it's usually Shahid, STARZPLAY, and Netflix. These are the 3 top services in most reports. And for us, UAE and Saudi are our top markets, that they represent about 70 or 80% of our business. And then the rest is GCC, and Iraq are strong markets for us.
So you still have a lot of untapped market in general.
Correct, especially in Egypt, Maghreb, Iraq. I think we have a lot of growth to come. Also in UAE, while we have grown a lot in UAE, as you know, UAE we're blessed with over 200 different nationalities, and in last 2 or 3 years, we're very fortunate to have seen a lot of population growth, but also the language preferences and demographics have changed as well. So for example, we've started to introduce Chinese anime on our on-demand service. We've also introduced hundreds of linear channels with different languages on our platform. So as the population grows in the UAE and the demographics change and people from all over the world are coming to the UAE, we are changing our product and evolving our product and growing with it. So even though UAE is our largest market and it's growing a lot, we still see tremendous potential in the coming years just because the population is growing.
So one of your areas that you're tapping more into the consumer side or doubling down on it was, I believe, the cricket exclusive rights in that case.
Correct.
And I've seen that your advertisements are everywhere. Actually, I spoke with a friend and I told him, what if you got the chance to ask Maaz a question? So his main question was, he has seen you on the soft drinks, basically bottle cans and bottles in general. How did this help you in your growth?
So a general answer I would say for all your audiences that, you know, we are a digital brand, and as much as digital marketing and social media and online marketing is important for a digital brand, existing in the real world is also very important. And how do you exist in real world? You can advertise, do outdoor billboards, right? Building wraps. Those are very, very memorable advertising. You know, we did that when we first launched, and people still remember it. This was 10 years ago, and people still remember and because we advertised very heavily in Abu Dhabi and Dubai on Sheikh Zayed Road, but that's very expensive. So the other way to exist in the real world is by partnering with packaged goods. So we did that with milk companies. We did that with M&M. So for example, with cricket, one of our very successful marketing campaigns was with Rainbow Milk. You know, the one you use for karak?
Of course, for karak.
Right? And so with each Rainbow pack, you were getting a subscription to the Cricket World Cup.
Oh, nice.
Courtesy of Rainbow Milk. And so that's the one that your friend is probably referring to. Yeah, right. And because when a digital brand exists in the real world, brick and mortar world, people remember it because you're seeing it in Spinneys, you're seeing it in Chouetram, you're seeing it in Carrefour. That's when you remember it. And because digital is very good, but the real world is a good combo.
Makes total sense. And I guess you won the word of mouth of anyone who drinks karak.
and you know, with cricket, you know, of course, you have teams from all over the world. Even UAE has a team now. UAE has its own team. Canada has its team. Even Italy had its own team this World Cup. And so cricket is becoming more and more a global sport. But still, it's India, Pakistan when they play is the big event. And especially in last 3 or 4 years, Abdullah, we were fortunate to have Cricket World Cups, Asia Cup happening right here in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Sharjah. And especially Sharjah, where, of course, as you know, the oldest, one of the first cricket stadiums in UAE is in Sharjah. Sharjah has a very strong history of hosting Pakistan-India matches all the way into the 70s. I've watched one of the first, my most favorite Pakistan-India matches with my father was in Sharjah Cricket Stadium. And so having these Asia Cups and World Cups being hosted right here in UAE also had a multiplier effect for us, because we are based in UAE, the events were here, and so that, and especially for India, Pakistan, both nations live here, coexist here. So going to the stadium, watching it together and watching it live or watching it on STARZPLAY, these events being hosted here helped us a lot, perhaps scale and multiplier effect, if you will.
So moving from cricket, now maybe from to the news side, recently Abu Dhabi media moved, so basically the Abu Dhabi TV app moved
Correct.
fully to your app.
Correct.
And in a certain, this question actually that comes in mind has two segments to it. One of the segments is that in the current period, we know that there are some challenges. However, how does these challenges help you thrive? Because I believe in the being in the digital industry, we've seen a lot of startups in COVID benefited a lot. Correct. Being in the digital industry. How did this help you, as well as how you are going through it? And from the other angle, how did the integration of Abu Dhabi TV come in place?
So with the current events, the way things changed for us, Abdullah, was the audience consumption behavior changed, right? So from Ramadan content, consumption went down a little bit, but news and current events, the shows on Abu Dhabi TV that were covering current events, as well as news, especially Sky News Arabia, consumption on these channels went up. We also saw ourselves as playing an important role, especially in the first week when official news was coming out. We were one of the many platforms that was, curating and showing the news and keeping the community informed through official channels. I think that was a very important role we played, making sure that our audience and community is getting the news from official government channels. And so we felt we were part of the system, we were part of the community. We also made sure that the news was uninterrupted, ads-free, because if you're watching an important news segment, you don't want to be interrupted with an ad. So we adjusted for that, because alhamdulillah now we're at a scale where we can afford a few days of not having advertising revenue. The focus was on bringing the news to the community and reassuring the community that everything is stable, everything is calm. And also, alhamdulillah, we didn't have any outage. We were 100% available, 100% uptime. All the news channels were running without interruption. So that was we felt an important role we played. And this quarter has been a strong quarter for us. Inshallah, we're just finalizing the numbers now, but we're delivering our budget, we're staying within our budget and hitting our numbers. So being a digital company, we are, in some ways, I don't want to say immune, but we are protected, and we've benefited from the stability of the infrastructure also, right? So whether it's the underlying infrastructure provided by Etisalat or Do, because we rely on both for our services, has been running. Uptime has been 100%. So no impact on our service.
Alhamdulillah, it's a great role that you're playing, and Allah yadim al-aman Oman. It's really a blessing to be in a country that has that stable infrastructure. Correct. For both people who are getting the transparency, full transparency
Right.
regarding everything, and getting all of the news day to day. And it's also great that hearing that basically you weren't affected and your numbers are going into place.
Right.
Alhamdulillah. In 2022, if I'm not mistaken, you've announced that I guess your exit strategy will be an IPO most probably. How are you going towards that?
That is, inshallah, that is the goal. So that's one thing, you know, it's, and this is, inshallah, you will learn this as well, that this is one of those things that's called a shareholder matter, right? And it's another way of saying it is it's above my pay grade. So that's the big vision, that's the big goal. And when, you know, when inshallah, when the timing is right and the shareholders decide, we will IPO the business, and the focus would be inshallah to IPO here in Abu Dhabi. This is our home. This is where the company started. This is inshallah, this is where we'll IPO, and that's what we're building the business for.
Inshallah. I've heard that you have some news coming soon. I don't know if you've shared it while a press release in the previous period. I don't know if it wasn't shared, if you can give us some glimpse or exclusive aspects of it.
Sure. No, we haven't shared it. We haven't made it public, but inshallah, we will be announcing a merger with one of our sister companies soon. We're bringing two companies together and scaling it in a much bigger way, inshallah.
Inshallah, all the best towards that. And maybe tapping into different angles of the business itself.
Sure.
And in terms of maybe going regionally, we've covered the aspect of how you're planning to go regionally. Any exclusive rights that you're eyeing next?
I think one of the things that's important to highlight, Abdullah, is that, you know, building a company is like raising a child, right? Each stage has different needs, and you find different ways of protecting the child, but at the same time letting them grow and be independent. And so each stage of the company, you try to identify new product lines, new service lines, new distribution partnerships, and new revenue lines. And so for us, in last 5 years, we've made two big shifts. One was launching sports, as you said, because it's a major investment, and technically it's completely different than entertainment. Because entertainment, you might watch The Office at 8 p.m. and, you know, I might watch The Office at 10 p.m. Everyone's watching it at different times. But when AC Milan and Inter Milan are playing, or you're watching the UFC main card, you're watching it at 6 a.m. And everyone's watching at 6 a.m. So that concurrency, technically speaking, is a different challenge. And so sports was a big step for us, both technically and investment-wise. And then the second big step for us was, because of sports, it gave us an opportunity to enter into advertising. And so I highlight that because it's an example of how you diversify your revenue stream. You find new growth vectors, you identify new growth angles for your business. Of course, they require additional investment, but you also find more growth opportunities. And this is what we've been doing, is identifying how every 3 or 4 years you have a new growth driver for the business. And advertising was perhaps our newest growth driver that we started almost 2 years ago. And it's the fastest growing revenue line for us. And we see ad supported platform as our future, especially in markets like Maghreb and Egypt.
Makes total sense. And in a journey that spanned 12 years, mashallah, impressive progress, and I believe a lot of challenges faced in between. What was a moment that you'd like to share that you felt that, khalas, I want to leave it, but then you had to go through that struggle and continue? Because every startup founder goes through that generally.
Yes. Look, I think for me, honestly, Abdullah, there were a lot of moments where it was very, very hard. But honestly, there was never a moment where I said, I want to leave it. There were a lot of nights where you question, will this work? Did I make a mistake? That's natural. And I had countless nights. You know, you wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. and you're thinking, and you question your decisions. And I question my decisions as well. But I never felt that I want to quit. That was one thing, alhamdulillah, I was blessed with, that was never an issue. I think the other thing I would highlight is you're, mashallah, still young, and you are doing this entrepreneurial journey before you have the responsibility of kids. And this is one thing I tell my kids as well. If you want to do a startup, do it early in life, because when you are in your 40s and you have kids in school and you have responsibilities, then the decisions you are making are not just for yourself. So that burden of, did you make the right decision, and is it impacting your family as well? That burden is sometimes a very difficult one. So that's what at least for me, that's what I was questioning. But I never felt that it's time, that I want to quit.
From everything maybe we discussed and covered, is there anything specific you would like to highlight that I might have not, or we might have not discussed so far, before moving to the rapid fire questions?
Oh, there's a rapid fire?
Yes.
Okay. I think the one thing I will say is, to all the founders and entrepreneurs, is that, we hear a lot from the likes of, Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, and they're in a different league. But, the idea that we get is that as a founder, you have to have belief, confidence, conviction in your ideas. All of that is true. I think as important as it is to have confidence and conviction in your ideas, it's also important to have, as a founder, it's also important to have humility when you realize that maybe your idea is not perfect, and maybe what you are doing is not perfect and it needs to be adjusted. Having that self-reflection or having that humility I would say, is as important as having that confidence and conviction in your ideas.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the concept of pivoting, as you mentioned.
Correct.
It pressurizes us a lot as youth, specifically, to
Correct.
see those iconic founders, but at the same time, hearing it from you is very comforting that, yes, there are a lot of changes that come, but we need to
Correct.
understand how to pivot through it.
Our business pivoted a lot in the first... Our idea pivoted a lot even before we got Series A. So it's one needs to be flexible with what the market is saying, what the investors are saying, what the consumers are saying. So that I think that ability to adjust is very important.
Now moving into my favorite part, the rapid fire questions. So, scale or profitability?
Both. I have to pick
if you'll trick me with the others, okay, I'll give you wasta with this one.
Okay. Well, I use my wasta for this one.
Then, risk or comfort zone?
Risk.
Content or distribution?
Distribution. You're talking to a sales guy.
Okay, makes total sense. Makes total sense. Sports or entertainment?
Sports.
So speed or perfection?
Speed.
Totally relates with the previous question. Makes total sense. Yeah. Instinct or data? You used your واسطة already.
I used my واسطة. Data.
So build or partner?
I was going to say it depends, but if I had to pick one, partner.
Because I saw both in your career, of course. You
Yeah.
you built a giant, but also at the same time you're going
Partner,
through
yeah.
partnerships. Yeah. One word that describes leadership.
Empathy.
If you would rebuild a startup in the UAE, what would you build? Other than your industry.
Do I want to give up my next idea on a podcast?
Maybe
No.
you find your first investor. I know that. Okay.
Honestly, I've never thought about it, Abdullah, because what I'm doing now is my dream, and I would like to do this as long as my shareholders allow me. So for me, going to work every day is a privilege, is an honor, and there's nothing else I would rather be doing. So I've never really thought about another idea. I just want to do what I'm doing. This is my idea. This is my thing. As long as our shareholders let me, I'd like to stay here.
Nice. That's nice to hear. And maybe from an investment perspective, if you'd be investing in a specific field, is there a specific field you have in mind?
Oh, from that point of view, there's so many opportunities that I see. I'm not an expert in those, but I see them. I think you have a huge AI boom, especially in the UAE. There's so many AI infrastructure companies. There are so many AI startups that are scaling up now. So I think the intersection of AI and consumer healthcare is very exciting. I think there's opportunities there. I think AI and data platforms is I think another very interesting intersection because AI and data platform, we see so many applications. I see it in our own business, on the marketing side, on the billing side. There's so many AI and data platform related opportunities. I also think strong opportunity in the networking and telecom field. It requires more R&D, but because that's my earlier passion. So on the networking side, I think, especially as it relates to AI, I think we're going to see a lot of change and a lot of technologies evolving and coming. So from what I see, those are the three big sectors that I feel are going to be very exciting in the next 5 to 10 years.
Amazing. And I see a lot of investments from the country itself in these fields.
Of course,
general,
this is,
and a lot of opportunity.
yeah, especially on the AI infrastructure, you've seen major investments come in here.
Yes, mashallah. Thank you so much, Maaz. I truly
you,
enjoyed it, and
you,
it was really beneficial in terms of understanding the bits and bytes of how to manage a startup and scaling it up. And super excited to hearing about your upcoming updates, inshallah, and hopefully the IPO, inshallah,
inshallah. Thank you so much, Abdullah. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.